Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by CoolStuffing.com, Mana Traders, as well as Twitch subs and Patreon supporters just like you. My name is Evan Irwin, and get started tweet by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Power Dragon.
What's up, everybody? I survived Bloomburrow week 1, and I'm still here.
We're doing it. Ruben Bressler.
Hey, that's Professor Ruben Bressler to you. Now that I have my job as a game design instructor.
Big prof. Have you had your first class yet?
Right. No, first class is the 15th.
Oh, we'll be here for you know it.
So coming up here.
Very excited. Now, if you missed our pre-show, which goes into all sorts of weird stuff per usual, patrons and subs of this channel can get access to that extended version early. We can get off with our first pick. And our promo code reminder, visit CoolStuffing.com. Use the promo code MagicMics to save 5% off your order. Anything in the store, and y'all have been using it, and I do appreciate every single one of y'all. Use the promo code. Tell them we sent you. That's how you do it. And we'll support your favorite streamer with your suggestions at the end of the show to see who we raid tonight. Thanks all, of course, to CoolStuffing.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock. They're awesome. Full disclosure, my employer, but they're still awesome, okay? It's a good thing. Now, we're going to move on here to our first pick. And the first pick is just basically Bloomburrow. Bloomburrow has been crushing it. Bloomburrow crushed it before you hardly knew anything. Bloomburrow was selling when people just knew the set and something about anthropomorphic animals, and it started to sell. And then they showed you like Mabel and a few previews, and then it started to sell some more. And then we started to barrel down closer, and they got to the point where they're like, we're not even going to show you Bloomburrow stuff. We're going to show you Duskmorn stuff because Bloomburrow don't need no help, because it didn't. Because Bloomburrow has absolutely crushed. And over the weekend, my God, y'all, all 6 Cool Stuff game stores, every single one sold out of their pre-release. I'm talking not like Sunday evening, they just eked out the last one. I'm talking most of them sold out Saturday night for all of Sunday. We're talking all sorts of people showing couples, older people who hadn't gotten the game in a while, people who didn't like when it got weird and gory and scary or wasn't Phyrexia. We're all about this sort of world and getting into it, and it's just absolutely destroyed. And this has not happened since Lord of the Rings. Only Lord of the Rings has done better than Bloomburrow in Cool Stuff game stores, as far as I know, like ever in a pre-release setting like this. It's nuts. This set is fantastic.
Well, this is the same thing I'm hearing from pretty much every retailer in my circles. Like, everybody just, and honestly, kind of to your point, they're saying, oh, lots of couples coming in, families coming in, crowds you don't normally get for the other sets, right? This is one that, I guess, because it has a more family friendly appearance, but the only couple of stores I could find that, and even then they sold it well, didn't completely go gangbusters, were from 2 guys that I would classify more of like the dude bro type, which I'm assuming their clientele probably matches that, because that tends to be the way. So that kind of tracks. But even then, you're talking about 2 out of a couple hundred, all of just yeah, this has been great. We're already putting in pre-orders. And, and I'll even say for my personal stuff, I see a lot of people coming in asking questions. There's lots of people on my Discord hanging out, wanting to build decks. So yeah, it's generating some activity enough that it makes me wonder if Wizards for real didn't know how popular it was going to be.
Yeah.
And could also be why Duskmorn's right up against it, of just well, if this doesn't go well, we're only dealing with it for 2 months, and then we're on to this thing that we know the other players will like or whatever. But it's wait a minute, this actually works. So now the question is, when do we go back to Bloomburrow, right?
Yeah. I mean, the question now is if, or when, not if.
Yeah.
It is kind of wild to me looking at it that they were like, hey, check out this cute little animal that we put into Outlaws of Thunder Junction, when they knew this was coming 6 months later. And they were just like, I guess we'll tease the cute furry animal. So the thing is, now Loot has to come to Bloomburrow and turn into a human, which would be hilarious. But so, yeah, I mean, the whole set has sort of shifted a paradigm, I think, in how Magic may be making sets or looking to make sets in the future. Because if you look at who showed up at the events, like you said, it is not attracting old players necessarily. It is bringing in kitchen table players into the stores, which is a huge dichotomy shift. You look at the most expensive cards in the set right now. Sure, we've got some elemental calamities, but then we've got otters, like cute weasels, right? Like those are more popular than the tournament level planeswalkers and powerful one drop kind of rares and mythics. Like the cute legendary otters and stuff, I think are more popular. So, and the rabbits and all of the cuteness. Um, I think that it's a paradigm shift in what people are looking for out of their trading card game experience, out of their Magic experience, because the way that we ingest Magic now is different than the way we used to inject Magic. After the pandemic ended, we wanted to get closer to our friends. We wanted to be with people. It became much more of a social gathering, and that's why Commander has taken off. And the fact that we can commiserate about the subject matter of the set is that much more important. So we have this cohesive, fable-like story that doesn't have details. We don't need too many details, but it's like they attacked, we defended, and we were victorious. And that's the whole story. And we don't really need more than that. And it's cute, and the art is gorgeous and different. Right. And we can bring our friends who are not necessarily hardcore gamer nerds.
I think there's another level to it, though, that these last couple of sets are also easier to understand and then easier to relate to, right? Like you can understand what, effectively Old West and cowboys are, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's no prep. You don't need a huge backstory. You can just look at what people are wearing and go like, oh, I get it. Same thing with this set where it's like squirrels and rabbits and whatever. Like, okay, cool. I know what animals are. I like animals. They're cute. I probably own some animals, whatever. Like that stuff really connects. For as much as us, we're ingrained, like Phyrexians are cool, but like, how do you explain a Phyrexian to somebody who's new or just getting into game?
Yeah,
well, there's this weird world and it's all metal and like this dude Karn showed up and he had this icky stuff on him, but then it's a weird
and as
thing.
much as I want them to like a murder mystery set, Murders at Karlov Manor it's kind of hard to explain. Not the greatest set in the world. There's not a lot of cards we even play from it these days, at least that I've seen, and there's a casual nature that was, I think, intimidated by Modern Horizons 3 because it's too much, it's too far,
Absolutely.
It's expensive, and so on. There is a casual level here that they've never even tapped into before of like, wow, these are little mice and otters and lizards, and I can like have my little cool decks built around them, and like the bunnies and stuff. Like it's absolutely adorable and fantastic. So, there were articles about how it didn't get too cute, and I would agree with that.
Agreed.
I would even argue that it should have went a little cuter, quite frankly. But overall, I think it had some great ideas. I think it would have been nicer to get more of the Planeswalkers in the main set as the bonus sheet versus as secret layers. The anthropomorphized Planeswalkers. But overall, I mean, again, it's a win. There's no way we're not going back to Bloomburrow as soon as humanly possible. Like, whatever is on the first
Not
slot,
humanly possible.
Whatever the first slot is of their post 3-year plan, I would put some dollars that Bloomburrow is going to be on that list real short.
Oh, yeah. Right. 2026, we're back in Bloomburrow. Sure.
But here's the thing. So we've learned from returning to sets that there is a good way to do it and there is a bad way to do it. There's a bad way to make sequels. You have to iterate. You have to adapt and become something new, but keep enough of the originality that it doesn't get lost. So, for example, we went back to Innistrad and we changed it to Lovecraftian horror rather than Gothic horror. And it's debatable whether that worked, right?
I can tell you from the inside when I was there was a lot of complaints.
Yeah.
it did not work.
Look at Return of the Zendikar. They just like...
I was just going to say, Zendikar's another.
You want to deal with the adventure world and not the weird aliens? And we're just like, what?
But when we went back to Ravnica, returned to Ravnica, Dragon's Maze not included, we returned to Ravnica, we iterated and we adapted and we added more to the story without changing too much.
So to me, like,
but it's not a rehash.
Yeah, but I think what people like about Ravnica is just like, give me my color pairs and just give me flavor within my color pairs, right? That's all I want. And kind of the fail of Karlov Manor, like we talked about, as we went back to Ravnica, none of that stuff mattered.
They didn't even really bring it up.
So the people who were excited about it being on Ravnica got disappointed.
Right. It wasn't a multicolor set, and it didn't really stress its world, and its mechanics didn't go outside of itself, and the mechanics themselves were about paying more mana to do stuff. And that sucks. Like, that's not fun, is to make more things more expensive. So, like, that was the thing. Now, the way to do it right, thank you, 3 Point Dice, is Kamigawa. Kamigawa, and also remember, as I like to point out, that is taking a not great set, not great execution, and doing it right. Which is why I desperately think we need to go back to Mercadia and do Mercadia masks the right way. Do the set about,
Sure.
a whole city that's built on bargaining and trade and sellers and buyers
But
and
I'd
markets.
also argue that
You can do that.
it's easier to do a rehash when the first one was
Absolutely.
bad.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, it makes it much easier.
So we did an intro, or we did. A friend of mine was on an interesting panel at Comic-Con this past weekend about remakes and parody, right?
Mhm.
And there's a difference between like a remake and a parody and a satire and a send-up. Like all of these are different genres. The correct way to do it in Magic is to do it as a send-up, right? And what I mean by a send-up is Mel Brooks does send-ups. Dr. Strangelove is a send-up. It's sort of a love letter to the genre, is what it is, but with heart and joviality. So if you were to go back to Bloomburrow, you want to do it as more either self-referential or slightly darker, or take it in a slightly different direction, but not as different as Eldritch Moon, for example, which took the entire genre and put a different layer, a different tone over it, because it changed the entire genre. You want to keep that same the same heart, just like slightly different characters and a slightly different story.
But then think about Innistrad Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow. These were sets that were like, we're going back to the core, you know what I mean? And they were hugely disappointing because the werewolf set didn't have a whole ton of werewolves, didn't sort of feel like werewolf-inspired mechanics. And Crimson Vow was all about a wedding, and that's cool. And we got the wedding ring and whatnot, which was kind of neat. But other than that, it didn't really change much. I don't think they wanted to rock the boat that much, and as a result, it's kind of forgettable, And so it's really tough to follow.
It's tough. It's hard.
It's really tough.
But it's a hard Goldilocks zone.
I think though, generally, you don't have to do too much iteration. Like I think if we'd have went back to Innistrad in either of these iterations, just been like, here's a crap ton more werewolves, here's a crap ton more vampires,
spirits.
Here's some more crazy stuff going on with spirits, whatever. Like people would have been happy.
Absolutely. Some more tropes that we might have covered or we cover again.
Yeah, you don't have to go nuts. Like
I think if we're going back to a storybook world, it doesn't have to be everyone's evil who was good now. You know what I mean? You don't have to. It doesn't need Shadowmoor to Lorwyn. Just like when we're returning to Lorwyn, next year. I hope it's a return to Lorwyn, Kithkin, fairies, not the scary, weird, Shadowmoor stuff, like the stuff that we initially found and really enjoyed. And that's where I see this happening. Like, I want to see another sort of version of Maha. I want to see Mabel in a different way, or maybe in a different state that she's been after the battles or whatever. Like, not a lot, just
or an entirely different era,
just a little iteration. Or do something like One Piece, like with 500 years in the future. Just go, go weird. Go 30 years in the past. Like, show us how Bloomburrow.
Introduce a couple of new animal types. Right? That's fine.
Kamigawa was 3,000 years after the Spirit.
There you go.
Like, you don't have to go.
You don't have to be the day after.
Now I'm thinking about it. One that actually did all right with that was Eldraine.
Sure.
Because the first
Eldraine did all right.
Despite having the overpower cards. Like, the set was really powerful, really well received. Lots of good stuff. And then we went back and it's like, oh, this is pretty cool too. And it was a lot of the same themes, but they made it work, right? It didn't feel like too much crazy iteration over the top outside of like
I think the
token enchantments or whatever those were.
A little
that was about
it. But like at some point I think you kind of got to indulge in like, all right, if this is your thing and this is your like one main thing for the set and it goes through all the different colors and all the different stuff.
I mean,
okay.
I've argued for years, even when I was at Wizard, I don't think we need new mechanics in every single set. I just think there's some, especially if we go back to a world, let's just do other stuff with those mechanics first.
Right.
Then we can talk about adding other stuff. I don't think.
Don't megamorph me. Don't you mega offspring me.
Exactly.
Please.
Yeah.
Like,
I kind of like the idea of just going
aren't we
back
coming up
to
on like 200 mechanics in Magic or whatever at this point? Like we got a lot, man. Like we don't need more.
They brought us Threshold, right? They gave us abilities that we kind of already have a lot of. So I'm
okay with that. Yeah.
And Wizards has as far as I know to this day, has continually fought the idea that if they use like a one of mechanic in a set like landfall, they won't put the word landfall on it. You know what I mean? But then sometimes,
which is weird.
And then sometimes they will, and you're just like, I don't know, because then they'll say, well, if you're building a flashback deck, we should make sure it has the word flashback on it. But then if you build a landfall deck, this other thing doesn't have landfall, even though it has the landfall mechanic. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
Yeah.
so weird. I still don't think they've actually figured out exactly the way they want to work that. But the idea that, again, we go back to Bloomburrow, I want Offspring again. Maybe it's Mega Offspring, like Multi Kicker, but like,
No, just give me just Offspring. You don't need to do anything to it.
Saying,
the mechanic is great as
if
is.
you want to iterate, there's iterations, but again, there's just core parts of it that the creatures, the world, the feeling, a lot of the gameplay, I think is really interesting. The way that it's kind of chopped out the creature types amongst the color pie. Just really fantastic work.
You know what they're going to do? They're going to give us Alpha Offspring to come in with a +1/+1 counter or something
Mega
stupid.
Offspring.
Yeah, just give us Offspring. We don't need anything else.
It'll be Offspring that are 2/2s instead of 1/1s because
yeah, exactly.
Alpha
Like,
Offspring.
Why
are you doing this? Everything is kicker.
Man.
Yes, please.
Twins? Yeah,
Seriously.
probably.
Twins is cute. They'll give us. It's like they'll come into play, except for there'll be 4/4 zombies instead.
But like right now, if they were to Ravnica-ize this, where they have blocks but they don't have blocks, but they totally have blocks when they do Ravnica, they do 3 sets of Ravnica. Do 2 sets of Bloomburrow. Do a follow-up. Do a swing and a return.
That's a good thing you bring that up, because I've had that thought of like, we don't need full blocks for something. Because I think 3 sets was a lot for even for R&D to try to manage it one time and make the story fit and all that. But I think there's a lot of room to do 2 sets.
Yeah.
I think we could do 2 sets and 2 sets in a year, and then maybe the next year we get a couple of new planes or whatever, and then we do 2 sets and 2 sets again.
They haven't done the Torment Judgment treatment in a while, where they're like color weighted. I think that that's an interesting way to return to a set or to a setting. Is like the energy has shifted in one direction or another. Like if we went back to Lorwyn and there was a bunch of red cards and it was like Lorwyn Wildfires and like that was the theme, but then the next set balances out with more white and blue cards and it's like Lorwyn after the storm.
I've thought about
that's an okay way to pull it.
I've thought about it, but I feel like that's a thing that worked in past Magic and not current Magic.
That's fair.
I think there's too many people that they already get tired of seeing one color played too much, or their favorite color only got 20% of the set, they'd be super, or 10% of the set, they'd be super upset about it.
If like Wizards, God help, if anyone happens to be listening and or know, what would be really interesting is to not burn it down. Every time there has to be some giant war, every time there has to be some huge calamity. What if things just got better? What if everyone just like had a good time in Bloomburrow? You have
that's not
a few bad
compelling.
Guys, yes. But what I'm saying is,
you can still have bad guys, but you don't have to kill the world.
Doesn't die.
Sure.
All the bunnies don't perish. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you could make them have conflicts without burning the whole thing down. That's all I'm saying.
Dude, give me the villain that like throws the smoke bomb and gets away. Like, and then we just bring them back.
And we
next
have fun,
time, right?
Have fun.
Because honestly, I think that's one of the problems we have with some of the superhero movies. Is some of these characters don't have a huge rogues gallery to begin with, and we keep killing off their villains. So, like at some point, if we want to keep making, I don't know, Captain America movies or whatever, like
you do have to lower the stakes.
The stakes problem.
Yeah,
when it comes to Magic, or when it comes to comic book movies, or when it comes to anything along those lines. At a certain point, you can't continue to ramp up. There's nowhere to go from Endgame. There's nowhere to go from War of the Spark. There's nowhere to go from All Will Be One. You have to reset the stakes. And so I agree with you on that.
I don't want them to make The Blind Side, which is a movie that has absolutely no conflict, by the way, and it's horrible. But you can have a little conflict, as a treat.
Oh, no, the conflict with that movie came outside of the movie, as it turned out.
Fair. Let's have, again, I just want to have some fun with these characters, before, again, Wizards had this, they're like, well, we just everything has to go to war. And it's like, no, it don't. Just, it's okay.
No, I don't.
Have a few bad guys.
Yeah.
Have some fun with it. Again, for me, the thing that Bloomburrow never touched on that I thought they should have was the buildings and the villages and the houses and the transportation systems, for example.
And that's room for later. We can do that later.
So let's go. Let's take a look.
It's great.
The villages of Bloomburrow.
Get lands that are like the hovels.
Oh, I love that. That's
or
cute.
The rabbit holes. Or whatever, and you get lands that do stuff next time.
That's very cute.
And land modifications or something, which there's some they've always been hinting at. Again, just
fortifications.
Right? The bunnies are going to fortify the holes.
Beaver Dam, the magic card. Let's go.
Dude, that'd be awesome. That would be awesome.
Yeah, so I hope they're having
All
a lot
right.
of fun with
We
the
did.
ideas for that stuff. But
All right, WotC, we gave you all the ideas.
there you go.
Those are
We
free.
fixed it for you.
Have fun.
That's we're going to move on to Gather the Townsfolk, talking about some community issues. Thanks to our sponsor, Mana Traders. Get them on the screen now for you. Use the code MagicMikes_8N4 to get 10% off your next subscription. Enhance your Magic Online experience. They also have Bloomburrow cards and a bunch of other cards that Magic Arena don't have. So you can do that. Check them out. Tell them we sent you. We appreciate it. So something's come out. Now, we haven't had a show here for 2 weeks because last week was the preview for Bloomburrow, and that was neat, and we streamed and whatnot. So here we are. And so this is something that maybe have moved in a little bit, longer, about 2 weeks ago, around July 18th. Hasbro named the Blizzard senior executive John Hight as its new president of Wizard of the Coast and digital gaming. And then shortly thereafter, Chris Cox had an interview where they're going all in on digital play. And you see the results of the Monopoly Goes, and Arena is a successful product, and you have hired a Blizzard guy, and that, I think that you can't deny the fact that they're printing money. Paper is still making them more money than digital, but B, Monopoly Go is making them a lot of money right now, and it can make a lot more.
To the tune of like $3 billion or
if you
something.
find more ways to make digital play happen for Wizards.
Yeah, I think this is not a bad situation though, right? Because they have a lot of products under the Hasbro umbrella that haven't even touched the digital space. So there's a lot of room there with a lot of, Transformers can still go deep and stuff. We would have never predicted Monopoly Go could be a thing, but imagine Transformers Go where you could pick your favorite Transformer, walk around with you, and you have battles against giant Megatrons or sound waves or something or whatever.
Right.
That could make a mint all on its own.
Sure.
So, yeah.
They've also got Risk and Battleship that they can still iterate on. So I think I get what they're doing. I'm worried about it, but I get it. From a money-making standpoint, they're going to continue to make money, which means that they're going to continue to make Magic cards, which I'm happy about. The rest of it is how do they make Magic cards? What Magic cards are they making? How are they releasing them? And that gets into further minutia, but ultimately it's a money-making business, and that's really all Chris Cox cares about.
So at the end of the day, that's his job.
Now,
but they did say earlier, though, with Arena, they're trying to get Pioneer on there, in some timely fashion. They did say there were plans to bring Commander to Arena. I honestly think that's probably where we're going to get Arena 2.0, because you're going to need a new user interface to make it work.
Something.
But,
you also remember there was those 2 years where we didn't have mobile. Remember that? That was a whole. They're making mobile. Mobile can never work. There's too many triggers. There's too many selections. But they figured it out.
Yeah. So you bring this guy in. If those are things you want to do, maybe he has ideas on how to make it happen faster, or studio relationships that he can help make happen, so you can get more people to help you program cards into the game, or whatever the case is. It makes sense. It's a reasonable move if you see there's enough money. They have the paper side down to a science, effectively. So it's bring somebody in who has the expertise there.
Now, obviously, they've been killing it with Baldur's Gate 3, which even we were playing just last night. So they're making plenty of money there. And from what I've seen, sort of around the industry, he has a really good reputation. Everyone respects this guy. John Hight oversaw a bunch of World of Warcraft expansions, Diablo 3 expansion, Diablo 3 on the console. And so, this guy has a pedigree. And hopefully it leads to great new things. Speaking of great new things, we'll go ahead and see if I can get this pulled up on the browser here, because it's Twitter and it acts weird these days. But MTGNerdGirl got to announce that they signed a lease for a recording studio. Check that out.
Very
That's
cool.
Super cool. That's a huge step. You're paying at that point. You're also a lease guarantees so many months that you're going to be doing that. So that's also a commitment. And the ability to get your own space and start doing your own thing is incredibly exciting.
Yeah, the biggest thing about getting a studio like that, especially for them, is when you have 4 or 5 people working on a team together, you can get a lot more done when you already have space just prepped. You can have multiple backgrounds set up to have different shooting stages, if you will.
Yeah.
It allows a lot of things to happen. So that's a huge thing for them.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy for her.
And for me, it's important for me to not be too close to where I work. Um,
Mm,
like my desk right now isn't in my room, and that's the first time that's been true in like 10
Oh wow.
years. Because I always just have my space and I live in my space, but I sleep usually less than 10 feet from where I
Right.
work. But now I don't, and it's great. And that's huge to just not be in the same, and it's not the same for everybody. Mr. Beast sleeps in his office. Like it's not for everybody
well,
to do that.
even then though, he has a separate room at his facility or whatever.
Sure.
That's just a room. Yeah.
But the other thing, and we had this discussion about Magic Mics a long
Yeah.
time ago, maybe a couple, 2, 3 years into doing the show. We were like, should we like look into doing a Magic Mike's land? Like, do like all of us move to the wherever it is. And at the time, it didn't make sense for our
Right.
show because Evan was in office in Florida. Aaron was in office in
Right.
Wisconsin, and I was effectively in office in
Right.
Vegas. And so it didn't make sense for our show and would not have made sense for our show. But it happens every once in a while where you get like the Good Luck High Five crew in
Right.
Minnesota, or many years ago, Loading Ready Run at this
Right.
point. And it's
Oh,
great.
their facility is
It's a
great.
beautiful step to take, and I'm really happy for Nerd Girl at that, and I can't wish anything but the most success
And I
for it.
hate the fact.
And if
Go
nothing
ahead.
else, oh, go
Well,
ahead.
I hate the fact that like never
Mhm.
never tell people where it is. If you know where this is,
Oh no,
don't
no, no, no,
ever tell anyone. The moon base,
I
the
don't I
Lair
don't
Ready
want to know
Run
where it
had to
is.
keep their stuff secret. Don't share where they're
Yeah.
actually at. People will swat them and will make their day hell for no good reason. And I hate that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's you shouldn't have to worry about that, but you definitely do.
Yeah.
And not only that, just for the safety of their equipment and everything
Right.
else, like you don't want that to have to be a concern. And when you're in a building, there's other security and whatever. That's awesome. That's one of the good things about it. But
Right. But
still,
still,
just
it's
don't
a
want to
risk.
create that
And it's tough.
situation.
But ultimately, the idea of having like shooting spaces, having workstations where you can just pop in footage and just go and edit and upload, and you have the lights already there, the microphone's already there. You don't have to reset that stuff up. It's not in your living space, in your way all the time. It's a singular point where people can meet and you can have schedules so people know when they start, when they stop. And it's not like, well, we're at my house, so let's just keep going or whatever. It's like, no, we'll show up from noon to 5 o'clock and we'll film so and that'll be our day. You know what I mean? And you can say stuff like that when you have those spaces that do that thing.
I also think the community needs these types of examples sometimes of just like, hey, this is kind of the next step. This is how, and you kind of will get to see how they set it up and what they're shooting in the facility or whatever. Because I think there's a lot of people still just meandering through the world trying to figure out content of like, well, what does the next goal look like? Or what can I be capable of? Like, what is even possible? So I think every time you get one or two of these examples, especially when it happens to the good guys, like you're like, oh, this is a thing I could do, or maybe this is what I should aspire to. So pretty cool to see her and her team really kind of get to take a step up.
Absolutely. All right, so we're gonna move on here. We spoke about the financial report a little bit when I was talking about that quote from Chris Cox. So let's move on here to desperate ravings. Some things to maybe talk about, rant about. Some things that we didn't get to cover, for example, which was specifically Nadu. And Nadu, if you don't know, or been living under that rock, or just haven't paid attention, is a card from Modern Horizons 3, and it is a very broken card. It won the Pro Tour, and it wasn't even close. It won a recent SCG event. Top five were Nadu decks, and Nadu, Nadu mirror in the finals. The mirror of the Pro Tour finals was also a mirror of Nadu. And Wizards has decided to announce that they are not going to change the date for the ban and restricted update coming up, I think, in a couple weeks, something like that, right? Mid August, a little bit later in August. And this is something we spoke about a little bit in some pre-shows and whatnot. And I cannot possibly explain how horrible of an idea that was. Where Power Dragon notes that sometimes they over communicate. And this is a textbook example of what you should not do. And here's why. Anyone who is okay with it is not complaining or saying anything anyway. And anyone
Yep.
who is complaining about it and you would tell them you're not changing anything, you just made everyone mad when you didn't even need to say that. Like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Why?
Could have just left it alone.
Because here's
Like if your date If your date was staying the same, literally no reason for an announcement.
You know,
Just let us speculate, do whatever, because it's not going to be any better if you say anything.
This did not improve anything.
Right.
This did not, and arguably you could have argued it made it worse. There is a Valve version of communicating, which is no communication, because their philosophy was you can't have bad communication if you don't communicate, But I don't necessarily agree with that. I appreciate how open Wizards is a lot of the times, but I think again we've spoken. Sometimes you don't need to tell them everything because they don't get it. Like, no, man, we got it. If you didn't say anything about it, we would have just realized that it's not coming until then. Here's your problem. All right, here's your problem. First of all, the reasoning for it was somewhere in the lines of, well, we've announced a date, and it would be like a bigger deal if we were to change that than to stick with that. Is that some weird version of pride? What the hell are you talking about?
So, yeah, that is a clarification that didn't need to be made of like, no. It's not that we can't change it. It's that we choose not to. Which is worse. Well, that's worse. You see how that's worse, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a problem. I don't know how they get themselves out of this mess.
The problem with that statement is if it was at all controversial to ban the card. The thing is, even people playing the card, and I guess we can put Grief in this category as well, like they are even saying, yeah, these things need to be banned. Y'all shouldn't be buying these cards. These are going to end up on a ban list, right? Like nobody is going to bat for these cards.
Yeah.
So it's like, who are you harming by just banning it 3 or 4 weeks early? Like who
right.
Who at all is upset by this?
We can tell you, we can show you who you're harming by not banning it. These events, events are having horrible turnouts. Events are getting canceled. Events are getting rescheduled till after the ban restricted list. This is happening now. This isn't some theoretical, we have bad feelings, maybe you should ban it thing. No, it is literally in the real world affecting things as we speak. And they to turn a blind eye to that is weird. It doesn't matter if you were to emergency announcement. Who gives a damn? It's your game. It's your purview as to what happens. No one gives a crap. What pride are you keeping here to keep things in a state where people know they're not good? Why is standard the only format that's fun right now?
That is wild. But also for anybody saying oh, well, Star City's just one tournament. No, there was another 10K where Nadu was half of the top 32. Was half of the top 8, and again, both of the finals.
Yep.
So this is not just coincidence, one-off. This is consistent tournament to tournament. Same thing with Grief. You're seeing it in so many decks in Legacy and whatever. It's common. We're seeing a lot of that. So it's when organizers that do this for a living, that have a good reputation, that are known for doing their yearly events and whatever, people still don't want to go to their events. That's a problem.
Yeah.
These aren't one-off things. These aren't things people are signing up for at conventions randomly. These are people that have been doing this, that people get excited to go to their events. And they're yeah, we're just not even going to run it because entries are too low.
You know what's funny is we did one of our earliest top 10s because we went in order. We did the top 10 blue-green cards that had ever been printed. And at the time, during that episode, we were like, man, blue-green is the color pair that's probably the worst. Because we recorded that in 2016, 17. And then they printed Oko. And then they printed Uro. And now they've printed Nadu. And we're going to have a card of the year at the Mikesies that's a generic of blue and a green for the third time. Jesus Christ. That's crazy. That's a crazy thing.
Could we still argue that that's still the worst color pair? Because all it did was create problems.
It created a bunch
I guess so.
You know what I mean?
And now frogs are insane in Bloomburrow Limited and might be a standard powerhouse, which I love. I love it.
I'm working on the frogs deck right now, and we'll see. I'm actually using that guy that has the adventure of one red, sack a guy and deal its power to your opponent.
Oh yeah. The black red guy.
Because what green and blue and those frog decks are good at doing is building up that little one mana guy to crazy proportions. But
and now you just need to throw him.
I can't beat things like Simulacrum, but if I could throw him and I get him up to a 15/15, I'll just kill you. Anyway, that's my frog.
Amazing.
Point is, I'm having fun there. I'm not having fun in older formats because they're busted. And
The thing is, this is how I tried to describe it to people who didn't understand what the issue was, or even to my wife talking about stuff. Is like, imagine going to an event, especially these big
Right.
tournaments, because if you're doing well, you're gonna be playing at least 2 days. Let's say you play 12 rounds before you get to the top 8. What if at least 7, if not 8, of those 12 rounds were against some version of the same deck? Like, you don't want it doesn't matter what the card
doesn't
is,
matter.
right?
No
Or what
one
the
wants
deck,
that
like
many
nobody wants to
mirror
do that.
matches.
Yeah. And that's the issue right now. Like, that is going to happen to people, that at least half their rounds are going to be against some version of whatever the big deck is in that format. And like, nobody wants to play that.
So
Nobody's paying $30 to $50 for an entry fee,
right.
buying a plane ticket or hotel room or food or whatever else, and being out several hundreds of dollars for the weekend to go have that
Right,
experience.
driving there, getting their deck ready to go, buying new sleeves and things, like making sure
Yep.
you got your buddies where you need them to be and so on, pay for entry for God's sake, stuff like that, and be like, well, and then I get the same experience over and over, and this is not fun. And some of the, part of the fun of Magic is variety. Not that mirror matches can't happen. Not even a couple mirror matches can't happen over that span. But we're talking, again, half the field or more.
Yeah.
It's miserable.
Mhm.
It's
Crazy.
miserable. So I don't know. It's wild to me. So from one thing that pissed everybody off to another thing that pissed everybody off. First of all, I thought this was super rad. My body wasn't prepared for a secret lair with Holy Grail, Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
It looks great.
Oh my God. It was incredible. And it sold out in less than 2 hours. And everyone's mad about it. And let me tell you something. All right. We've lived through the different worlds where there's a limited number. We've lived through the world where they print to order, and we've lived in the world where they went back to there's a number. And let me tell you, the successful parts of this program were the bookends. It was not the print to order that made all the money. It was there's a limited time, you better get in here and buy this as quick as you can, that made the money. Now, the numbers that they put on Monty Python were definitely too low, but this is the exact outcome they want to happen every time. Like, these are success problems. And not that I'm saying they want you to like suffer and hate it, but what I'm saying is, if some people miss out, that's okay. If they sell out, that's what their aim is, and they just put the number too low.
I do have a rebuttal for that. And this is a little bit of a rant, but it's, if you're signing these licensing agreements to get these, where you're talking about Fallout, Monty Python, Hatsune Miku, whatever, right? We've had a bunch at this point this year. Those can't be cheap, whether you're giving them a percentage of dollars or you're just buying the license outright, whatever it is. So your goal should be to make the most money possible off of this partnership. Because otherwise, what's the point of doing it? You know what I mean? Like, it's weird to not want to maximize the money. And somebody at this point, because this is like the 4th time this has happened this year, like, somebody has to be sitting there aware that once it sells out, you still have like 1,000 people in the queue.
Now, so let me go to the other side of that. The other side of that is that you go to these IPs, these properties, right? And you say, based on the percentages that they agree to, whatever those happen to be, and we're going to make X, you're going to make $3 million. Like, just to pick a number out of the air, right? And you're pretty confident, based on a limited number and what that number is and what previous sales have been for things that are similar, that you could make that number happen. I think that's good. That's good negotiation, to be like, it's not in the bank, but it's pretty well got a track record to show you're going to make this much money. And if you print to order, who knows what that number ends up being. But they've known that there's been a lack of enthusiasm for print to order items where there hasn't the other way around.
But I think that's when there's not a big IP you've attached to it. That's the thing. And the number should be, realistically, even if you want there to be FOMO, the number that you get, by a rough estimation, should probably last 10 to 12 hours in the queue. And then if it sells out, you just didn't get it, whatever. But right now, you're in a situation where if somebody literally goes to work at 9 o'clock, by the time they get to their lunch break and get on their phone, even if they're in the queue, they're not able to get the product. Like, that's not reasonable.
But that's picking a bad number.
It's just not.
Just picking a bad number.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like.
Yeah, but we're 4 iterations into this happening, though. Like,
and I think part of it is that, maybe part part of it is that these agreements have been made so far in advance that those numbers are locked in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like,
I can't imagine you can't talk somebody into just having more money.
I'm not saying you can't.
Like I
I'm
can't.
saying
That's what I'm saying. Like that's the part that I'm frustrated with.
you
Like
know how contracts are going to
literally
contract in the big world. You know what I'm saying?
everybody involved can have more money.
Yeah,
Like
you got to be
you
careful.
literally
there.
go to those people that own the license for Monty Python and you say, "Hey, look, we hit this situation. We know we said 3 million. We think it's going to be 4.25."
Look,
Like they're not going to complain for if you give them another 1.25
and
million.
you know what? RoboToken actually did note there was the very, very first secret layers were 24 hours and is gone. Remember that?
Yeah.
And The Walking
And
Dead,
that's fine
and people
too.
lost their minds. They're like, oh my God, you're only giving me 24 hours. That's insane. But they sold a bajillion. If you only sold the Monty Python for a day, Lord Almighty, the numbers would have still been
Yes.
completely bananas.
But again, you gave everybody a chance, right? You got a reasonable chance. If you didn't get it, sure, it sucks that it was only one day or whatever, but you had a real shot to get it.
And
if
then
you
I
wanted.
think
My problem with the current system is you don't have a real shot if you are trying to get it. Like people that literally got up, saw their notification, whatever, hopped on, were in the queue for over an hour, still didn't get it.
Yeah, I mean, and as I recall, they expanded that to like a week or something, and then later they kept going. It was like a month, and then all of a sudden there was like no enthusiasm and so on.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? But like again, print to order for a day. It's what, like I said, hell, I would have done it for 12 hours, but hell, full
I
day
think
works.
24 hours at this point. Again, we've got tons of data, plenty of examples, good, bad, and ugly. 24 hours for any of these products, particularly the outside IP products, I would highly suggest at this point.
I would also say the FOMO isn't totally working the way it's intended because I've talked to several people already that said, well, I don't even try anymore. Like they literally just know the odds of them getting one is just so low. They're just not even trying. I know I don't like, even when they look interesting, I'm like, there's other people who want it more. So I'm just not even going to get in the queue.
And you're right. And, I think, again, they're not all, one size does not fit all. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to treat every secret layer as like this 1 month thing they keep doing or whatever. It can be special packages that happen at various events and times, alongside a monthly whatever, if you have to do that.
I'm all for pre-printed numbers for stuff that doesn't have a major IP agreement. For the stuff you're trying, because the other thing too is you're also not just selling to Magic players.
Oh yeah, selling everybody who likes Monty Python.
Yeah, so open it up more for those particular, and just say like, yeah, this one is going to take 8 weeks to get to you or whatever the case is. Like that's fine, but everybody who wants it gets one.
This is max FOMO. Just to be clear, this is the hardest you can FOMO. Even harder than 12 hours or 24 hours. When you say there is a number, and once they're done, we're done, and you don't know what that number is, and you know it's going to be a hot item, we'll keep seeing this happen. And is that great? I don't know. I know that at some point or other, I can't remember where I read this, but the perfect amount to print of a collectible product is 90% of the demand.
Yes.
You want 10% to have missed out, have that feeling of, damn, I missed out. I don't feel good about that. And next time, be ready to go on that FOMO before they miss out again.
Yeah, but the problem right now is if you look at just the complaints on Twitter, and we'll assume one Twitter person probably equals like somewhere between 10 and 100 other actual people, right? How many more thousands of, like you're talking about literally raising your end of year revenue by a full percentage point or two if you were to have actually sold the number you could have sold of all these secret layers.
The other part of this, and also looking at the financial report, and that Wizards has been killing it with like a 20% increase in sales and stuff and digital and whatnot, is that I think part of that could be some of the strategy of in the future, you pivot to a wider window because the number needs to go up. The number always needs to go up. There's pressure all the time.
Sure.
So if that's the valve that you need to hit next to get to those new heights, let it be, man. Have this be your reasoning.
Yeah. By the way, Serial Freak in chat says, I don't think they really care if it's fair. They want money. That I disagree because this decision does not make all the money.
Yeah,
this decision does turn down
doesn't
dollars.
take hell. This decision right now feels
strange.
like it's not even taking a third of the money that they could take.
Yeah, they missed out big time with this one. Like Hatsune Miku, awesome, but this stuff was like
And by the way,
for $125.
the part 2 of Hatsune Miku is around the corner. Like that's coming. That's only a few weeks away, I think, because they announced that not that long
There was
ago.
another one. Yeah, it's going to be the third one, I think, coming up.
Yeah, so it's just like we're going to be setting ourselves up for this again. It's coming.
It's going to happen. I mean, again, until they want to change things, we'll see. But this one was a big thorn in the side because I think there's so much nerd love for Monty Python and the Holy Grail of all the movies, of all the properties. Even Princess Bride was one thing, but this is arguably the greatest comedy ever made, depending on who you talk to. And you made this amount, and they disappeared in an hour and a half. So damn.
Yeah.
And the people who were there to get in and snipe, if you will, as many copies as they could the instant they could, well, that's how that works.
Yep.
All right. With that said, we're going to turn the corner to the finisher. Now, the 33rd Olympiad kicked off in Paris this past weekend, and we are already well through much of the event. American icons like LeBron James, Simone Biles, and Snoop Dogg, and Flava Flav are all over the coverage.
Yeah.
So tell me, who is your national treasure from this summer's games, Ruben?
It is great that the mascots for America for the Olympic Games are Snoop Dogg and Flava Flav, which if you
By
had
the
said
way-
that in 1989, people would not have believed you.
Flava Flav also saved Red Lobster. Just want to point that out. Like he is
Did he?
becoming yeah. Like he apparently found out about it and went and like spent some money apparently to try to like save Red
Oh, my
Lobster. So
God.
like dude literally got sober and just became like model human. Like I don't know what
Amazing.
happened.
Our
I
most
love it.
wholesome stars at the Olympics are Snoop Dogg and Flava Flav. I love this
Yeah.
timeline.
Great. Yeah.
Anyway, Ruben.
I love that sliver of this
The
timeline.
small slip.
For those of you who know me, it will not surprise you to learn that women's rugby sevens center Ilona Meyer is my phenomenon from the Paris Games. Her TikTok popularity is exploding, her passion is infectious, and she plays the way that I like to play Gruul decks because math is for blockers.
Nice.
Just truck over people. That's what I like.
Power drag.
All right. So most American gymnasts are generalists. So you do a little bit of everything. But there is one guy, Steven Nedorosik, that does one thing, and that's pommel horse. And he won bronze, which was the U.S. first gymnastics medal since 2008. Plus, he's a glasses-wearing Rubik's Cube solving nerd like the rest of us. So it's pretty cool. So I'm excited to come to Magic and specialize in Magic's version of pommel horse, which is tiny leaders.
Definitely. You're going round and round, going round and round.
Yep.
Now, there are lots of goats in France competing in their chosen art forms, but to me, the true goat was at the opening ceremony. Celine Dion made an appearance and made everyone as weepy as the rains above with her incredible performance, and I can only hope that her career, just like my heart, will go on.
Dude, that is one of the saddest stories in music and Hollywood.
It's horribly sad.
Yeah.
That opening ceremonies was
It was wild, and but all the best, of course, too.
the ghost horse, the armor cowl, which I'm obsessed with and want for my LARP character. The whole thing.
Dude, the rock band on the castle, like you had all kinds
Rock
of
Band
stuff
on the
going
Castle
on
is
with
pretty
that
awesome.
thing.
I'm not gonna lie.
It was crazy.
Now, that ends another live episode of Magic Mike's. Thanks for joining us here to discuss all things Magic. Thank you, Power Dragon.
Hey, as always, good to be here. Y'all don't forget to like, subscribe, give us the good 5-star rating, all that good
Yeah,
stuff.
thank you, Ruben.
Hey, everyone who's attending Gen Con this weekend, have a great time, play some Magic for us, and stay safe out
There
there.
you go. I'm going to move on here to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, Mana Traders, my co-host, Power Dragon, and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching and listening, and hope you support us at patreon.com/magicmics. Please follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us on our exclusive member Discord, live on twitch.tv at Magic Mics, live or taped on our YouTube. Follow us at Twitter at Magic Mics Cast, on TikTok at Magic Mics Cast, or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.